Mark Walter just sold the Lakers only 10 months after buying them, and the timing is raising question. With the FBI and SEC reportedly investigating his companies, Walter suddenly handed over a team worth billions, and it looks like he's finally revealing why. Let's get into it. Let's start with the number, $12.5 billion. That's what Bob Iger and Josh Kushner agreed to pay for the Los Angeles Lakers. And it's not just a big number, it's a record. This is the most money ever paid for an American sports franchise. For context, when Steve Ballmer bought the Clippers back in 2014, he paid $2 billion. Walter made more than that in profit alone, in less than a year. Now here's the part that makes this whole thing strange. Walter didn't own the Lakers for years. He didn't own them for a full season, even less than 1 year after purchasing the Los Angeles Lakers. From Jeannie Buss for $10 billion, Mark Walter is selling the franchise for a record $12.5 billion. To former Disney CEO Bob Iger and businessman Josh Kushner, according to ESPN's Ramona Shelburne, 10 months. That's the entire tenure. Not even 10 full months since Mark Walter officially acquired the franchise. He sold it to Bob Iger and Josh Kushner. And it wasn't a slow negotiation either. Iger himself said the whole thing came together in 3 days. Iger told the California Post, "We were involved in pursuing the new franchise in Vegas, and while that happened, it was suggested to us that maybe Mark Walter would be interested in selling his stake in the Lakers. And we immediately decided that, given the value of the franchise and the iconic nature of the team, that we would be really smart to pursue it." The deal came together in 3 days. 3 days to sell one of the most valuable sports properties on the planet. That's not how billion-dollar deals normally move. So who exactly is stepping into Walter's spot? Josh Kushner isn't new to sports ownership. Kushner already owns a minority stake in the Miami Heat and used to own part of the Memphis Grizzlies. He's also the founder of a major venture capital firm. Kushner founded Thrive Capital, which is a venture capital firm that invested in companies such as Instagram and OpenAI, among others. And yes, the family connection is impossible to ignore. Kushner is the younger brother of Jared Kushner, President Donald Trump's son-in-law. However, Josh does not have a role in the White House and is a much more private person. Bob Iger brings a different kind of weight. Decades running one of the biggest entertainment companies on earth, now pivoting into sports ownership after stepping down from Disney. Together, the two men issued a joint statement calling it an honor to become stewards of the franchise, name-checking the Buss family's legacy directly. "We have immense respect for the leadership and vision of Jerry and Jeannie Buss," they said. "Our long-term commitment is to build on that foundation, compete at the highest level, and serve this extraordinary team, its fans, and the city of Los Angeles." Walter, for his part, put out his own farewell message, framing the whole 10 months as something close to sacred. "Owning the Los Angeles Lakers has been one of the great honors of my life, an extraordinary investment. But what I will carry with me is the community, the fans, and a city that treats this team as family," Walter said in a statement. "I am grateful to Jeannie Buss, the Buss family, the players and the staff for welcoming me into this chapter. The Lakers belong to Los Angeles, and I have every confidence the best is still ahead." But underneath all that warm language sits a very cold fact. At the exact same moment Walter was writing goodbye notes about great honors, federal agents were sitting on his phone and his laptop, seized months earlier as part of a fraud investigation into his business empire. Last month, Bloomberg reported the Securities and Exchange Commission and U.S. prosecutors were investigating potential financial improprieties at two of Walter's insurance companies and at Guggenheim Partners, the sprawling financial firm that Walter co-founded and still leads. The players reacted almost instantly. Luka Doncic, now the unquestioned face of the franchise after LeBron James left for Philadelphia, posted his response within hours. "Being a Laker means everything to me, and I'm excited to get back on the court and bring a championship to LA." Doncic said, "I've gotten used to big changes over these last few years, but I know that no matter what, there is no limit to the potential of this iconic franchise. I look forward to meeting Josh and Bob so we can get to work building something special in LA together." Jeannie Buss, still serving as team governor, responded to Doncic's post with a simple 2-word approval. She liked what he said and made sure everyone saw it. Meanwhile, over on the business side, minority owner Patrick Soon-Shiong kept it short too, welcoming the new partners with a quick "Go Lakers" on social media, according to Front Office Sports. 3 athletes and executives, 3 different tones: relief, approval, welcome, but none of them touching the question everyone else online was already asking. Why does a man sell the crown jewel of American sports 10 months after buying it? At the exact moment, federal agents are circling his companies. To understand why this sale feels so jarring, you have to understand how fast Walter's Lakers chapter actually started. This wasn't some outsider stumbling into basketball. Walter is the co-founder and chief executive of Guggenheim Partners, a financial giant with holdings stretching from insurance to media to sports. He already controlled the Los Angeles Dodgers, a stake in the WNBA's Los Angeles Sparks, and ownership ties to Chelsea Football Club in the Premier League. Walter's TWG Global Holding Company controls the insurers, his stake in Guggenheim, and ownership stakes in other sports teams, including MLB's Los Angeles Dodgers and the English Premier League soccer team Chelsea. Walter is also among a group of investors that owns the WNBA's Los Angeles Sparks. For 46 years, the Lakers had been something different from every other trophy asset in sports: a family business. For 46 years, from 1979 through 2025, the Los Angeles Lakers were a family-run organization, owned and operated first by Jerry Buss, then later by his children. That changed when Jeannie Buss and her family agreed to hand majority control to Walter. The agreement wasn't a clean handover either. It came with conditions built to protect the family's legacy. Less than a year ago, Mark Walter purchased a 78% stake in the Lakers from the Buss family at a valuation of $10 billion. When he reached that agreement in June 2025, it was stipulated in writing that Jeannie Buss would remain the Lakers' operating governor. The deal took months to clear league approval, finally getting the green light from the NBA's Board of Governors that fall. The deal, which allowed the Buss family to maintain a 15% stake and called for Jeannie to continue as the team's governor, was not approved until Oct. 30, 2025, which meant Walter spent less than a year as the majority owner, before selling to Kushner and Iger. And Walter didn't sit still once he had control. He moved fast, reshaping departments that had been neglected for years under the old ownership structure. Since taking over the Lakers, Walter has been aggressive in reshaping the Lakers' front office and scouting staff, which had been one of the smallest in the NBA, despite the size of the Lakers brand. The Lakers have been building out a much more robust and diversified front office, with Rob Pelinka still in charge as general manager. Walter made sweeping changes to business-side personnel as well, changing much of the organization. That kind of investment is exactly why so many people found the sale jarring. This wasn't a guy who bought the team, let it coast, and cashed out. He was rebuilding it. Forbes put it plainly: Walter had shown the same pattern of aggressive reinvestment with his other franchise, and it had paid off. Walter has shown his financial commitment with the Dodgers by signing the league's elite players, revamping its front offices and analytics staff. That philosophy contributed to the Dodgers winning 3 World Series in the past 6 years. Walter has displayed the same financial commitment toward expanding the Lakers' front office, analytics department, and other staff members. So the obvious question stands: beyond an enticing financial offer, why would Walter part ways with the Lakers after only purchasing it 10 months ago? That question sits right at the center of the storm, and it's where the federal investigation comes roaring in. Here's where the timeline actually starts getting uncomfortable. The federal probe into Walter's businesses didn't begin this summer. It began quietly months before he even closed on the Lakers. The investigation began after an internal whistleblower complaint, and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan and the Securities and Exchange Commission began investigating last year. By the time Walter was settling into his new office at Crypto.com Arena, agents were already moving. By September, 3 months after Walter's purchase of the Lakers, the feds had seized laptops and phones. That's right, the seizure of his devices happened just 3 months after he bought the team. He ran the Lakers for the better part of a year, with federal investigators already holding his phone. Let's get into exactly what investigators are looking at, because this isn't a vague, some paperwork issue situation. It's about billions of dollars in loans, and whether the numbers behind them were real. The core of it involves 2 life insurance companies Walter controls. The Los Angeles Times, in a report by Lawrence Darmiento, noted that prosecutors and securities regulators are examining companies at the center of Walter's holdings. Guggenheim Partners, the Chicago investment firm where Walter serves as chief executive, and two Delaware life insurers he owns, Delaware Life Insurance and Clear Spring Life, an annuity. The seizure of Walter's phone and laptop happened last September, and it wasn't some routine document request. It was a search warrant executed by federal agents in a city far from Los Angeles. The FBI's Chicago field office confirmed to Bloomberg that the search took place but declined to elaborate, and the outlet reported that the warrant was one of several executed last September in connection with the investigation by federal prosecutors in Manhattan. Since then, the scope of the probe has only grown. What started as a look into disclosure practices has ballooned into questions over a staggering pile of debt. Federal agents seized the phone and laptop of Lakers owner Mark Walter last September as part of an ongoing federal investigation into his business empire. According to Bloomberg's Zachary R. Mider, Ava Benny Morrison, and Miles Miller, as a probe into $16 billion in loans expands. $16 billion in loans under a microscope, with regulators trying to figure out whether the numbers behind them were properly disclosed to investors and rating agencies. The mechanics of the alleged issue get specific fast. One of Walter's insurers reportedly reclassified billions of dollars in debt in a way that raised red flags. Los Angeles Times reported another Walter insurer, Clear Spring, reclassified $4.6 billion worth of loans as affiliated. Delaware Life and Clear Spring have both received subpoenas related to the probe, according to the Journal. And there's a very specific transaction sitting at the heart of it, a massive foreign investment that regulators believe may have been made on the back of misleading numbers. The government is reportedly investigating whether Mubadala Capital had been deceived about the valuations of Walter's companies before the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund invested $10 billion into Walter's investment firm that purchased the Lakers a few months later. Financial experts brought in to explain the mechanics compared it to something almost mundane, the kind of thing that happens whenever you're negotiating with someone connected to you rather than a total stranger. As one accounting expert explained to Silver Screen and Roll, if you sell something to a family member instead of an outsider, you might quietly adjust the price, forgive payments, or delay repayment indefinitely. And that's exactly the kind of arrangement that invites scrutiny. That's why, from an audit standpoint, there should be more scrutiny if you're doing business with the left hand and the right hand, because it's easier to manipulate things, Dubinsky said. Repayments can be delayed indefinitely. They are always more suspect to fraud. By February this year, the pressure moved from search warrants to formal legal demands. This past February, the two insurance companies received subpoenas, and the fallout started hitting Walter's companies in ways that showed up on paper. Credit rating agencies took notice. The WSJ also reported that Fitch placed Delaware Life on negative watch, and S&P revised its outlook to negative. There's also a health angle that's been quietly reported alongside all of this. Walter has reportedly been dealing with the aftermath of a stroke he suffered back in late 2024, right around the time he was closing in on buying the Lakers in the first place. It's the kind of detail that adds another layer to a year that was already stacked with pressure. Financial, legal, and physical, all landing at once. None of this means Walter has been charged with anything. He hasn't. There's no indication the Dodgers are for sale, or that Walter is considering it, and he does not currently face any criminal charges. But the money at stake, a probe that's grown to cover $16 billion in loans, makes clear why so many people looked at the timing of the Lakers' sale and started connecting dots. And Walter's business, in response to all of it, has stuck to one script. Everything was done properly, and it'll all get resolved, a TWG global spokesperson told the Journal in a statement that Mark Walter and TWG have always acted in good faith, and those who have done business with Mark know him as honest and straightforward. Nothing about these transactions was any different, adding, "We are confident these matters will be resolved favorably." Now here's where things get genuinely tangled, because the buyer isn't just anybody. Josh Kushner is the brother of Jared Kushner, and Jared Kushner is married to Ivanka Trump, meaning Josh is, by marriage, part of the president's family circle. Kushner's brother, Jared, advised Trump during his first term, and now assists with Middle East negotiations as a special envoy for peace. Trump also pardoned their father, Charles Kushner, over federal fraud and tax evasion offenses. Layer onto that the fact that Walter, weeks before this sale, was standing in the Rose Garden getting personally praised by the president. There's also the matter of Walter's actual relationship with President Trump, who welcomed Walter's Dodgers to the White House last month and received a championship ring. Trump personally praised Walter at the event, calling the billionaire his friend, saying the team has great ownership, and openly hoping they make a return trip next year. So you've got a man under federal fraud investigation standing next to the president as a friend, and weeks later, selling his most scrutinized asset to the president's in-law. It's not hard to see why people reacted the way they did. Sports business writer Joe Pompliano was one of the first to say what a lot of people were thinking. Sports business analyst Joe Pompliano raised questions about the timing. Writing on X, "I wouldn't say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but it does seem weird that a guy who owns multiple sports teams and was in the middle of rebuilding the Lakers' entire business operation would sell the team for a 20% gain in 2 years at the same time he is being investigated for fraud." Skip Bayless went further, asking the question outright on air, tying it directly to the fraud allegations against Walter's companies. Former longtime Fox Sports 1 and ESPN personality, Skip Bayless called the sale a shocker, adding, "Does it have to do with 2 companies owned by Mark Walter being investigated for tax fraud?" Independent journalist Aaron Rupar framed it even more bluntly, laying out the sequence of events as one continuous chain of coincidence. So Mark Walter, who was at the White House recently, is under investigation by the Trump administration and just so happened to abruptly sell one of America's premier sports franchises to the brother of Trump's son-in-law. Independent journalist Aaron Rupar wrote on X, sports and business newsletter writer Joe Pompliano, yes, the same one, had already flagged the strangeness of the timing to Raw Story 2, describing the entire situation as one that would look exactly like this if it were a coordinated arrangement, even without saying it outright. Online, fans ran with the theory in real time. One popular response floating around Yahoo Sports summed up the mood. The price Walter had to pay to escape his federal investigation might just be the team itself. One supporter kicked things off by saying the price Walter had to pay to get out of the federal investigation. Another added a darker spin, saying it would fit perfectly with how things tend to work right now. Mark Walter selling the Lakers to a Kushner so he can avoid that federal investigation would be so on brand for the state of this country. This supporter agreed. A third simply couldn't shake the coincidence. Another believes it's everything to do with his financial status. I have a sneaky feeling that there's more than meets the eye with Walter, especially given his investigation. 2 competing theories crystallized out of all this noise. One says the administration leaned on Walter through the investigation to push him toward a friendly buyer. One suggested his administration encouraged the investigations to pressure Walter into selling to someone close to the Trump family. The other flips it, that Walter himself saw the sale as a way to ease the pressure coming from federal officials, regardless of whether anyone told him to. Another claimed Walter may have viewed the transaction as a way to reduce pressure from federal officials. Faced with all of this, the White House didn't stay silent for long. A spokesperson gave reporters a flat denial when asked directly. Front Office Sports asked the White House specifically about the first theory. Thrive Capital, Kushner's venture capital company, offered its own brief denial. This is false. A company spokesperson said, Front Office Sports got the same blanket denial when they went straight to the source. White House spokesperson told Front Office Sports the sale has nothing to do with President Trump or his administration. Kushner's camp pushed back on the politics of it too, pointing out that Josh doesn't share his brother's political alignment at all. Kushner has never worked for the Trump administration in an official or unofficial role. He calls himself a lifelong Democrat and has supported Democratic candidates for years. Iger's history complicates the neat narrative as well. He spent years as a Democratic donor before shifting his registration. Iger is also a longtime Democratic donor, though he changed his party registration to independent in 2016. And there's one more thread tying Kushner to a completely separate controversy that had just blown up weeks earlier. His role in a failed attempt to bring private investment into FIFA's World Cup operations, an effort that collapsed after fierce internal opposition. The Lakers' announcement follows a scrapped proposal for Kushner's Thrive Eternal Fund to invest in FIFA's new World Cup commercial operation. Gianni Infantino, FIFA's president, abandoned that plan after intense opposition. That failed deal is part of why some in sports business circles were already watching Kushner closely before the Lakers news even broke. So where does all of this actually land? The sale still isn't final. It needs sign-off from the rest of the league's ownership group before Iger and Kushner officially take the reins. The NBA will now go through the process of once again approving the sale of the Lakers. After Iger and Kushner have formally agreed to purchase the organization from Walter for $12.5 billion. Most expect that approval to be a formality, the same way it was for Walter less than a year ago. This sale ultimately will have to be approved by the league's board of governors, but that seems a mere formality, as it was for Walter 10 months ago. For Jeannie Buss, the arrangement she carved out with Walter appears to be carrying forward into this new ownership group untouched. Iger has already confirmed he intends to honor it. Iger said that the new ownership group will honor Walter's original deal with Jeannie Buss, and that she will stay on as governor for at least 5 years after that 2025 sale. We have enormous respect and appreciation for Jeannie, her father, and what they've contributed to this franchise, Iger told the Post. And we have every intention to honor the agreement that was made between Mark and Jeannie. Still, not everything is settled. Analysts have pointed out that the full operating structure hasn't been made public, and that leaves real questions hanging over people like General Manager Rob Pelinka, who was given assurances under Walter's ownership that may or may not carry the same weight under new owners. So, after being assured that they would be part of Walter's plans for the Lakers, Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka could be facing uncertain futures with the team. On the court, the players are simply trying to keep their heads down through year 3 of ownership churn. Doncic, if this deal clears, will have played for 3 separate controlling ownership groups in under 2 years. If the NBA approves the sale, Doncic will have played under 3 controlling ownership groups in roughly 18 months. That's on top of losing LeBron James to Philadelphia this offseason, leaving Doncic to carry the franchise alone into a new era under owners he's never met. As for Walter, he isn't walking away from sports entirely. He keeps his grip on the Dodgers, the team most associated with his rebuilding formula, and that success is exactly why people are now watching that franchise for signs of what comes next. Under normal circumstances, an owner selling one of his or her franchises might not immediately cast questions about the rest of their sports assets, but Walter is an extraordinary case. He's currently facing a federal probe and parallel SEC investigation for his multi-billion-dollar business empire, including loans made by the insurance companies that he controls. Reports have already surfaced that his holding company is quietly reaching out to outside investors, including a firm run by Mets owner Steve Cohen, looking for fresh capital. TWG Global has reportedly approached multiple investments firms, including New York Mets owner Steve Cohen's Point72 Asset Management, about a range of deals to raise cash. That money would be used to help pay down those loans involving Walter's insurance companies and his other companies. Getting a majority of the Lakers' $12.5 billion valuation should aid that effort. That detail alone tells you plenty about where the $12.5 billion is actually going to end up. Not necessarily into a new venture, but back into shoring up the very companies under federal scrutiny. Whether that was Walter's plan from the start, or just a convenient outcome of circumstances outside his control, is something only he and the investigators poring over his phone records really know. For now, the Lakers have new owners waiting in the wings, a legacy front office trying to hold its footing, a superstar in Doncic trying to build continuity out of chaos, and a seller who profited $2.5 billion while the government keeps digging through the rest of his empire. The record price tag is real. The federal probe is real. And the 3-day deal that connected a fraud investigation to the president's extended family isn't something anyone in the NBA saw coming when this season started.